Hello developers, welcome back to the channel. It's Chris from Moralis, and in this video we will take a look at the user authentication with not just metamask but the username and password combination and actually setting information to a user's profile in the database. Now this is a useful function that you can apply to any application that you're building. Obviously what you'll need to do is style the HTML into whichever format you would like, but this gives you the basic building blocks that you would need to run the Moralis functionality, which can be done with just a single line of code in most cases. To follow along with this tutorial, you'll just need to make sure that you have Visual Studio Code or a code editor of your choice installed, and we will download the code to follow along in the description of this video below. So the first method that we can use is the crypto wallet login, which is to sign in with MetaMask here. When we click that, we'll need to sign our transaction with MetaMask, and then we will see that we are logged in. The login details disappear. We see the logged in content, which would go there, which you would choose to be whatever you like as the developer. And then when we log out, it goes back to the sign in screen. And here you can do the same thing. So you could, for example, sign up a user called user whoever, user4, password ABC123. We will register. We get to the same place. The logged in content will go there. The login buttons disappear and you see the pattern. We can also log out and sign back in with those details. There is also built into Moralis the error handling functionality or the alerting functionality. So for example, if I had the wrong password here and we try and log in, it would simply say it's an invalid username and password. If we try to register with no details, it will give us an error. If we leave one of the fields empty, it will also give us an error. And it tells us where we're going wrong. Once we have created a new user with the username and password, it will save automatically to our database. And I'm going to show you now the code of all the different functions that we use to create this particular template that you can use and build and modify however you like into your own applications. So let's go and jump into the code. Now, this particular code is just a one-page HTML file. What I mean is I've included the JavaScript, some of the CSS, and all of the HTML in this HTML file. Don't recommend you do that. It's good to split them out into various different files. But essentially, the document is pretty straightforward. The head of the HTML just includes the regular metadata, the title. We've included 4 different script libraries, if you like. Here we've got our Web3, we've got jQuery, we've got Moralis, and we've got Bootstrap installed. We've also got the Bootstrap style sheet installed as well. There's a little bit of styling here which can be ignored. It's really just mainly for the footer and for some links. It can be removed. There's a jumbotron on the HTML, which is just this section that's in grey at the top. Inside there, we've got our header 1 tag, we've got our buttons, and that's pretty much all there is. And then there is a container div, which just shows where the logged in content would go. Now for this example, when you're logged in, it's going to show, but it'll be hidden when you're logged out. And when you are logged in, these buttons will be hidden. And that's a JavaScript function that will handle whether a user is logged in or logged out. Now in your own application, you would handle that slightly differently, and you might render the content using JavaScript based on their logged in status. But for this example, we didn't do that. Okay, now I put my server credentials in a separate JS file, so just make sure that you have your own server initialized inside of your JavaScript. You would put it in here, for example. To find those details, you just need to log into your Moralis server. And once you've logged in, click on View Details. You'll need to copy your server URL and your application ID. And what you'll need to do is go over to the documentation and just make sure that you have checked out the Getting Started section of the documentation to find out the initialization snippet. You've probably done this 20, 30 times already if you're fairly familiar with Moralis. But if you haven't, just go and copy and paste the most up-to-date initialization snippet. 2 lines, you need to initialize the application ID and the server URL. And you copy and paste that into your application. Okay, great. Let's hop back to the code editor and we'll just run through these functions. The very first one is very simple. It is the crypto wallet login function. This is an asynchronous function and it has a try catch block. And really, it's just one line of code for the majority of what needs to be done, which is here, which is to await Moralis.authenticate. That code will run the login box for MetaMask. But there's a couple of prerequisites or a couple of checks that it runs first of all. First of all, we need to check, is there a user? Is a user logged in? That's what this does here. Saves the value that this returns into the current user. If there isn't a current user, then we need to run the authenticate to go and get the user to log in. And then what we're going to do is run a function called check user, and we'll come to that in a second. The catch will catch any errors, and that's pretty much our MetaMask login function written. Not a lot to that one. The logout function is even more straightforward. It is a single line of code which just awaits the moralis.user.logout. And then once we're logged out, we just need to check the user, which I'll come to right now. Now this check user function, scroll down for that one, does a couple of things. It checks the user's status to see if there is a user logged in or not. If there is a user, then it's just going to do some styling changes. It's going to hide the login buttons, it's going to show the content, and it's going to show the log out button. And it does the opposite if there is not a user logged in. And so it will show the login button, it will hide the log out button, it will hide the content, and it will show the other login buttons as well. So that's all the check user function does. It just swaps what you can see on the screen based on whether you're logged in or logged out. Okay. Now we needed to create two more functions here. The first one was a register function for when a user wants to sign up with a username and password. And the next one will be a function to log them in if they want to do that with their username and password. So what we've done in the register function, first of all, is gone and saved inside the underscore username and underscore password variable. We've saved the value of whatever was contained in the username and the password HTML fields. Okay. And that the register button, as soon as it's clicked, it runs that register function. And that register button is quite simply this register button here. Okay, you'll see that in the HTML a little bit further up in the file. And these are the connections to all of those buttons. So there's an on click for the register button, the login button too, which in the HTML is this one here, to the log out button, which you'll see when you're logged in, and the login button, which you'll see when you're logged out, which is this one here. Okay. And these are the fields. This is the username field. This is the password field. So whenever that register function is run, it will just simply save that and save that into these two variables in here. Sorry, I'm in the wrong function here. So this is the username and the password. And then what we would do is we would create a new user using this line of code. And the user is a new instance of the moralis.user. And then we will save or set some information to that particular user. We're going to user.set their username to whatever is stored in there. And we'll user.set password. And you can choose whatever you like for these fields. I've just called them username and password. And then we run a try catch block. The try that we want to do is a single line of Moralis code, which is to await the user.signup method. That's it. If it goes wrong, then it will alert the error. And once that's done, we'll just run that check user function to render the HTML that we see on the front end. That's the register function. Simple. And then the sign in function would be an asynchronous function. And it runs something similar to what we've seen before. We just check if there's a user logged in first of all. If there is no user logged in, then we will go and get the username and password that the user has entered into the fields in the front end. And again, a try catch block. The try that we'll do, single line of Moralis code. We will await moralis.user.login and we'll send it the username and the password, which is whatever they put in here. If it fails, it will come back with an error. Otherwise, if we go back to this if statement here, we were talking about if there is not a user already, then it will allow us to log in. But if there is a user already, well, then we are already logged in. So we'll just send an alert back to say that the user is already logged in. And at the end of that function, we'll just check the user to render what they see on the front end. And that's it. Super simple, not very much code. The majority of the code that we see here is rendering the CSS and what we can see in the HTML. But as far as the functions go, pretty straightforward and basic. And you can add to this really easily by rendering the HTML in the form of a JavaScript function or however you want to do that. You can transfer this over to a React application. You can put it into any framework that you are currently building your applications in. But it's super powerful to have this kind of authentication available to you with just a few lines of code. I know we say this a lot, but the power is in that simplicity. You can do a huge amount of programming in just a few minutes, really, if you know and understand how to put these functions, these methods into your code. So there you have it. So if we go and check the database as well, and I'm actually using this one here, you'll notice that in our dashboard, on the left-hand side, we'll see a number of users that will be signed up to our application, and all of those would be here. So we just recently did user 4. I'll do one final example just so it adds into our table. User 443, for whatever we want to call it. We'll register, it's logged in. So we'll go over to our Moralis user table, we'll refresh. That one will go up to 9 users. There it is, and we will see the user in here. So there you go. I'm sure you'd agree, super simple functionality, but incredibly powerful in its applications once you build and add to it into your own dapps. And that's the power of Moralis. It helps you level up your applications and get to building them much quicker than normal. And all of this is available for you for free. So go and sign up with a Moralis account and start building your dapps. We'd love to see what it is that you're building. Join the Moralis forum in the Moralis DAO, and also get involved in the community. Post any problems that you might have to the forum and share what it is that you're building, because we'd love to see some of the creations that are coming out from the community. Guys, I hope that was useful. Leave a like on the video if you enjoyed the content, subscribe to the channel, and we'd love to see you in the next video. Take care.